Hi and welcome back to the Joyful Soul Creates. Lady Joyful here, and I'm so glad you could join me today for the 10 cards 1 kit video using the limited edition Simon Says Stamp Halloween card kit. I'm just showing you here just a quick overview of what came in the kit. There was rather a lot of things, and I decided to focus on using the stickers for my cards. Although actually I do have a bonus card at the end, so there's 11 cards, and the bonus card didn't use any of the stickers, all the other cards do. So for card 1 I wanted to feature this fun cobweb pattern paper, so I'm cutting it down to be just smaller than my card base. Initially I was thinking I would do it portrait, but after playing around I ended up making the card be landscape style. So I'm just measuring it and making sure I will cut it down to exactly the right size, because of course I only have a limited amount of this paper, I don't want to waste it. So the white card will show just slightly all around the edge, and then I will take just deciding which way around I want it and sticking it in place. I use double-sided tape for that, and then I'm taking the spider stickers from this large sticker set. There'll be links to all the products below. The kit is sold out, but I will link to what products are available. I decided to add the Jeepers Creepers sticker as a sentiment because I felt it went well with the overall look of the card, and then I added the spiderweb on the inside just to finish off the inside of the card. It took me a while to work out where I wanted to put it. And for card number 2 I really wanted to use the skeleton. I trimmed down a piece of the one of the pieces of Tim Holtz pattern paper, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with it at first, so I was just kind of playing around with the different stickers, trying to work out what to do. I think originally I'd been planning on having the skulls kind of dancing around the skeleton's head, but the skulls were too big, so I changed my mind. I thought I would use the house sticker and put the gravestones with it. There's two different gravestones, and I actually decided it looked better having one on either side of the house rather than having them both on the same side. And I decided to add the skeleton as well, and I cut a piece, another piece of the pattern paper, because I felt like the stickers needed some ground to them, so they were just floating. So I'll adhere the grounding piece to the back piece using my tape runner, and just make sure it's completely straight, and then I'll trim off the edge where it's overhanging, just making sure it's completely flush. And I decided to swap the skeleton and the house around, because that way the skeleton is looking towards the house, which I felt looked better. So then I just need to adhere the panel down, and that completes that card. For card number 3 I really wanted to pair up the ghosts with the pumpkins because there were 3 of each. I thought it would be fun to do a circle behind them, so I used another one of the Tim Holtz pattern papers for that. Then I'm just gently laying down each of the pumpkins, getting them positioned how I want them, and slightly overhang the circle, but I also wanted to make sure they're level, which is what I was using my grip mat for. And then tucking the ghosts in behind, one for each pumpkin. I did use my tweezers to help me just lift that up slightly. And I want it to look as though the ghosts are coming out of the pumpkins. and then I decided I would add a sentiment with another sticker. I did actually play around with a few different options, but this was the one that I thought looked best. So that will go along the top, and it fits nicely between the two outermost ghosts. And I just want to make sure it's straight. Then I will flip the panel over and add some tape and adhere it into place on my card base, how I had arranged it originally. Similarly to the first card, this fourth one, I really wanted to highlight this fun pattern paper. I really liked the stars all over this one, so I again trimmed it down to be just smaller than my card base, and I thought I would put the witch sticker on it because I thought it would be kind of like the witch is flying through the night sky, even if it's not a realistic night sky. So then I was playing around with which words I wanted to add to it. As you can see, I considered adding witches and magic, but they didn't seem quite right. And then I noticed the hocus pocus, and I really liked how it looked to have that kind of split, so that half of it's above the witch and half of it is below the witch. So I'm just fiddling around laying those out, making sure I'm happy with the positions and that everything is lined up how I want it. And then I decided to take some of the star stickers. They match the paper really well, so I didn't really need to add them, but I felt it just added a little extra something. Then I'm using my tape runner again to adhere the panel to the card base. And I decided to add some more of the stars onto the inside of the card as well, just for an extra finishing touch to the card. These skulls were another big feature, I guess, of the sticker set. Amongst the more obvious stickers to use, so I really wanted to make use of those. I was still taking inspiration from the idea I'd had previously with the skeleton card, where I'd been thinking of having the skulls kind of flying around, so that was the look I was going for, which is why I didn't add any grounding to this card. I'm again using a panel of the Holtz paper, and I added a speech bubble saying boo, and also decided to put spooky in between them, and using my tape runner to adhere that in place. Then I again decided to add to the inside. I considered adding the bones on the front with the skulls, but it didn't look quite right, so instead I thought I would use them on the inside, and just played around with different ideas of where to put them and what to do with them. I decided to add boo on the inside as well, alongside the bones, and I spent quite a while fiddling trying to decide where to put them. Actually, looking at it now, I prefer them in a line to how I ended up doing them, but I don't mind how it ended up. I decided to put them as like crossed bones beneath the word. So for card number 6, I wanted to use the witch's hat, which was one of the last elements, large elements in the sticker set. I was actually starting to get low on stickers at this point, but I knew I'd had this idea that I really wanted to have the sweets. There were a lot of sweets or candy images, and I wanted to do them so they're kind of tumbling out of the hat. So I'm using another piece of Holtz paper to make my panel, and I had a very narrow strip cut from another piece of pattern paper that I used as my grounding. I positioned the hat on it to one side, and then I'm adding the various lollipops and various other sweets as if they are coming out of the witch's hat and kind of tumbling across the card. I actually spent a little while fiddling around with them, working out how I wanted to arrange them and trying to make it look kind of realistic. I mean, obviously the hat wouldn't have been able to hold as many sweets as are there, but it's a witch's hat, we can just pretend it's magical, and that's why it's got so many sweets. So I'm just tucking another lollipop in, and then there's another boiled sweet tucked in there, and there's another piece of candy cane. I think I used all of the sweets from the sticker set and tucked all of them in. I believe that's the last one. And then I added this trick or treat sentiment, which fitted perfectly, almost as if I'd planned it, which I hadn't actually. So for card 7, I'm a bit simpler. As I said, I was starting to run out of stickers, and I'm struggling to come up with ideas for what to do with the stickers that I had left on this large sticker sheet. I had this offcut of paper, pattern paper, which this large All Hallows Eve sentiment fit into perfectly. So I added that. I decided I would add the cat head and one of the pumpkins as well, just on opposite corners. I felt the diagonal looked good. I wasn't quite happy with the white card base that I'd been planning originally, so I swapped to a KRAFT card base. Then I'm just using some double-sided tape because my tape runner has run out. I need to buy a refill, and positioning that in place on the front. And I decided to use some of these words. I was really struggling to use these stickers, so I decided to add a selection of them to the inside of the card, just for a bit of extra interest and to help you them up, really. So I used 5 of those. At this point I was really struggling to find any more use for those stickers from the bigger sticker sets, so I decided to move on and start using the Puffy stickers. I'm again using a piece of pattern paper to ground my images, and then I wanted to use the house. It's one of the biggest stickers, so it was kind of an obvious choice. I decided to add the witch and little black cat just beside her. So I'm just laying everything out at the moment. I thought it would be fun to add some bats just to fill out the top area of the card a bit. And I also decided I would use the trick or treat sticker. Fit very nicely in the middle, so then I'm adding the bats just to help fill out that top corner. Again, using double-sided tape to attach my pattern paper, and I will press that into place, trying to make sure it's straight, and then I will stick the stickers down. And the cat, which completes that card. I did consider adding the pumpkin, but I decided not to in the end. For card number 9, I decided I would try to use up some odds and ends I had. So I have 2 snippets of the Tim Holtz card and 2 snippets of the other pattern paper. I'm trimming down the star pattern paper to be the same width of as the orange Tim Holtz paper. And then, because there's quite a large gap in between, I thought I would add some of the twine from the kit. There's some Tim Holtz twine. So first I adhered the panels into place, and again using double-sided tape. And then I used my craft knife to cut a slit in the top of the white area of the card base where I wanted the twine to go, and then threaded it through, and I didn't show that because I was out of frame, but I wound the twine through 3 times and then taped it on the inside. And then I'm just working out what stickers I want to add to each panel. So of course I had to add the spiderweb and the spider to the spider pattern paper. I considered adding the ghost, but it didn't seem quite right anywhere. But this Happy Halloween sentiment fit that big panel perfectly, so I put that there. And then I thought the little kind of buttons, little round stickers, fit nicely on the dotty paper. I thought they coordinated quite well, so I'm just laying down all 5 of those. And I actually decided to put the cat as the middle one, because then there's kind of orange ones top and bottom, and then the black ones, and then the cat one. Then I added a moon and some stars to the little panel, and tied a piece of twine around the twine that was already there. Card number 10 is actually one of the very first ideas I had. I wanted to do some paper piecing with the house that comes in the stamp set. So I picked out this piece of Tim Holtz paper and stamped the house onto it. I heat embossed it in black because that way the lines were easier for me to see for cutting out compared to just stamping it. So I treated it with my anti-static powder tool first, which is the white powder you can see, just to make sure that the embossing powder would only stick to the stamped lines so it wouldn't get messy. So then I'll add the black embossing powder, just make sure it's all nicely covered, and then I heat set that off screen, and I'm just carefully fussy cutting around the whole image. There's a fence at the top, I don't know if it's fence, railings I guess, at the top, which I did cut off the bits that go outside the boundaries of the house, and they will be stamped directly on the card base, because that was much easier than trying to fussy cut around such a fiddly area. Then I stamped it again onto a different piece of pattern paper, and this time I just want the roofs, so I cut all the roofs out. I took a third pattern of the Tim Holtz paper and cut with a pink and main, I think it's scallop wave dies. That one's not scalloped, but that's what the die set's called, so that was making like a hill to ground the house. I decided to add some white detail to the pillars and the areas around the windows, just to help them stand out a bit. Not sure if that was the right thing to do, but I was feeling like the pattern was a bit too busy, so I figured I'd try it. I used my glue pen to adhere the house into place, and I will use that as well to attach the bits of roof. And then I'm using the I think it was banana split glow in the dark Nuvo drops to add some dots to each of the window pane areas. I thought this would be a fun way of making it look like there's lights in the window. And then I added the ghost and the thought bubble sticker. Finally, I have my bonus card, which doesn't use any stickers at all. I stamped out the cat and pumpkin from the stamp set onto some watercolour paper. Actually, I think this is mixed media paper, I bought the wrong one, but it works anyway. And then I'm using my Molotow marker to mask them off, and I left that to dry for a while whilst I worked on the previous card actually. And then I'm just adding in some paint around them. I'm using my Gansai Tambi watercolour paints, and I'm using 2 different purples and black, and I'm doing wet on wet technique, and initially I'm just dropping it in and letting it spread and building up the texture, and then I kind of painted over it a bit more to give it a more intense look. So I just kept working that until I was happy with the coverage. Probably should have used a larger brush for this this stage of the painting, but never mind. And then I also dropped in a bit more of the colour just to bring back some of that texture that I had built up. And then when it was completely dry, I put it in my splatter box, and I'm splattering gold paint all over it. And I decided to also use the gold paint to ground my images. So I'm just painting a very basic layer of ground along below them. And once that is all dry, I removed the masking fluid and coloured in the images with some watercolour pencils, and I'm blending them out using an old Wink of Stella, which I've just added water to, so there is still some shimmer in it, but it's more of a water brush than a glitter brush. I'm just blending that out, and then I added it to some very wide-sided tape I had, and I will use my bone folder to make sure that's completely pressed on, trim off the excess and adhere it to my card base. And then I added a sentiment from the stamp set which says, you're my favourite pumpkin. Thank you for watching today's video. Here are a couple more that you may enjoy. You can click here to subscribe and never miss a video, and the like button is below. I look forward to hearing from you in the comments, as well as over on social media and my blog. Happy crafting, and I'll see you again in the next video. Bye!